about obviously what we do.
Let's talk restaurants.
Testing 1, 2.
What did that strike you as Harry Ball?
All right, Tony, so we're going to talk about another hotly contested topic. And I think it would be really interesting to get your perspective on it because you haven't really gotten to enjoy the fruits of the tips.
Nope, never. Never in the back of the house.
Never in the back. Well, or can there be?
Certainly could be.
So the idea here is the idea between tip sharing where an individual server is sharing tips based on what they collect and then distributing it amongst the team, like the service staff, let's say busboys, runners, anybody else on the team, at their discretion, or the idea of pooling tips where all of the servers, all of the bartenders who collect the tips off of the checks are able to put it into one big pool and then everybody shares. Kind of like, for example, right wing versus left wing, right? Idea of how restaurants work. I have lots of opinions on this specifically because I've actually collected lots of tips in my life, and I was a part of a tip share and I was a part of a tip pool. Both can have their positive effects on service, but ultimately, I'm a capitalist, and I believe that unless you have an incredibly well-developed restaurant culture and hospitality culture within your restaurant, you usually want to incentivize the individual service staff, the servers, the bartenders, and anybody else who directly impacts the guest experience. You want them to have every reason to collect regulars. For example, I give stellar service, provide a personalized experience to a guest, and they come in and ask for me, and they decide that they want to drop me a bless me, as they called it in the restaurant days. They want to bless me with a $100 bill, even if they only ordered $50 worth of stuff. In a way, I should have the incentive to want to go above and beyond in service so that I have the direct repercussion of this, right? Another big thing about, I believe, the, let's say, tip share, as some people call it, the idea that I'm gonna be individually responsible for my tips, is that it also kind of incentivizes me to develop relationships so that on slower evenings, I have, guests have a reason to come visit me, right? I'm telling them, I used to always get a business card from the restaurant, and if there was like a big tipper or somebody who wanted a specific kind of experience, or somebody who ordered big wines, right? I took the initiative. I said, I'd get a business card, I'd write my name, my number, and I'd say, hey, listen, it was a pleasure to serve you this evening, Mr. Lipschultz. I love Burgundy too. It's great that you're into Xavier Chambertin. Do me a favor. Anytime you need a reservation, I want you to reach out to me directly. I'll make sure you have a great table. I'll make sure you can sit in my section, and I'll make sure that you have a great experience. I also know how you like your oysters. So what is your kind of thoughts on this? How do you feel about tips in general?
I think it can go both ways. It really depends on how the business is set up, right? I see benefits, pluses and minuses to each one.
Yeah.
Right, from what you're explaining, it's, you feel empowered to go after certain things,
Yeah. I used to always tell servers and bartenders, imagine that this section is your little portion of the restaurant. It doesn't mean that you do your own steps of service. Right. It doesn't mean that you're, you change the menu. No. But what it does mean is that in your little section, you
establish relationships with the diners that they.
Yeah.
But in a pooled house, it's just you mean it's less. You feel less inclined to go above and beyond because all the tips are pooled.
Well, yeah.
It has a psychological effect.
It has a psychological effect. For some team members, the idea that, hey, a regular comes and gives me $100 every time he comes in, no matter what he, she, or they order, it's like, why should I share that equally with somebody who maybe doesn't put the same effort in?
I suppose you're hoping that there are other tables doing the same things for the other wait staff, and that's everything. And I feel like this has a way of incentivizing everyone to work together. You could still have clients asking for your section, you can still be doing that, and I'm trying to say without being like snotty about it is like,
say it.
It can help the people who are underperforming.
It allows for mechanisms internally to police the type of engagement you get from each of the different service staffers.
Incredibly diplomatic. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I agree. So listen, there's some of the best restaurants I've ever been to were pooled houses. And like I said, it requires a certain type of culture where all of the service staffers are bought in.
Yes.
They all want to help clear tables. They all want to run food. They all want to know the menu backwards and frontwards. They all want to be engaged in selling wine. They all want to be part of delivering this incredible experience.
Of course.
Right? And most typical high-end, fine dining, set service restaurants, I would imagine, I don't know, but a Le Bernardin, a French Laundry, these types of classic 3-star Michelin service and high-end haute cuisine delivery restaurants.
Sure.
They want the entire team to work together. And I remember famously Charlie Trotter's restaurant, Charlie was big on, hey, I'm gonna pay you a flat salary. You come in based on your experience, I might offer you $75K, I might offer you $90 based on your skill level and what you bring to the table. But the tips are for the house. And it's up to me to distribute these tips the way that I deem is appropriate. He got a lot of flack for that. But on the other hand of that, there were many devout staffers that loved that kind of situation. I know what kind of money I'm making every month. I know what my responsibilities are. I'm always going to contribute to the restaurant and the overall guest experience in a consistent fashion. And I don't have to worry about, is it a slow week or is it a busy week? It all goes into a pool and I have a consistent salary.
Sure.
I think in general, anything that provides a bit of back of house, a little taste, a little sliver
So
of that.
does that include the back of the house, the pool?
There are
It
some,
can and cannot, right?
right. I think there's been some legislation that says you can't be included in a tip pool, and I don't know if this is statewide or federally, but you're not allowed to be included in a tip pool if you're not doing a guest-facing interaction, right? So Noma was the first time I've ever heard. I remember you came back from Copenhagen, and you had told me how much you enjoyed the idea that
the cooks would come and bring you your plates.
yeah, I thought that was so cool because the people actually making the food were interacting with the guests. If there was an explanation needed, or hey, what's that?
Right.
I mean, the guy, whoever just made it is the one who's going to explain that to you. I thought that was so rad. That's the type of situation where the back of house.
It's interacting more with the guy.
Correct.
That gets into interesting legal.
Yes. Yes. Ultimately, all this administrative work lies on someone. You got tips coming in for bartenders. You got tips coming in for servers. You got private event staff that gets their little portion of commissions. And all of this has to normalize into one experience for the team members, especially if the restaurant is putting all these tips into a check. So thankfully, our team at Over Easy, they are versed in all types of accounting platforms, from Sage, R365, QuickBooks, Dynamics, any kind of accounting platform you can think of, we've had experience in. And the POSs that are driving all the revenue, driving the sales, the transactions, the tips, the gratuities that are collected for the house. Our team are experts in figuring out who's owed what, how we can make sure that all this is shared, and then based on whatever tip process you choose, ensuring that all the information needed to make sure that payroll is accurate is taken care of.
Fantastic.
I wish Over Easy Office was available when I was an operator. It would have probably made it so that I would have stayed inside of day-to-day operations for at least another 4 to 5 days. Or years.